next thing is circumferences. Circumferences are listed on the score chart. There is given locations that each one must be taken. It doesn't matter if you shoot a spike or a 12 point. There's always 4 circumferences on both sides for a whitetail, well, antlered game other than moose. The first one is always going to be between the burr and the G1. You take it at the smallest place, so you pull your tape around there. There is a right, wrong way to do it. You see on the 0 mark, you have a line that goes up.
Yep.
I can put that right on the bottom there and see exactly to the 32nd where that measurement is. And so I wrap it around and I'm looking for the smallest place. Anywhere between burr and G1, it's always the smallest. If when you're taking any measurement, a tine length or a circumference, it falls on the 16th, it rounds up. If it falls below the 16th, it rounds down. So the 16th or higher, it goes up to the next nearest 8th. One thing that a lot of people we see, yes, Boone and Crockett is aware that 4/8 equals 1/2. We always leave a score unreduced so that I know when we're reviewing that the measure rounded to the nearest 1/8 and not half or quarter.
Okay.
If they put down quarter, we can assume they rounded to 1/8, but if they leave it in 1/8, that helps us know that yes, indeed, they did round to the nearest 1/8, or in the case of bears, 16th. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, and yeah, I always get a hard time anytime I'm filmed though. 4/8, yeah, I know it's a half, or 6/8 is 3/4, obviously, but that's why we use that verbiage there. So find the smallest there. The next one is between your G1 and G2. Again, work it up and down, find the smallest. G2, G3 is going to be the same thing, and then G3, G4. This one's a pretty clear cut deer on where that's going to be. On this side, we have that abnormal point. An abnormal can never be a separator for a circumference. Okay, so this is our G2, this is our G3. This abnormal doesn't do anything. So it's the smallest between here and here. It could be taken here or here. In this case, this is the smallest, but G1 or H1, excuse me, H2, H3, H4. I've got another deer here. And like I said, there's always 4 circumferences. Regardless of what they've grown, we're going to get 4. This particular buck has absolutely no G1 on the left side. In this case, since there's no attempt, there's no bump, there's nothing, both your H1 and H2 will be taken at the same spot, which is the smallest between the burr and the G2. Again, now you have a G2, G3, you'll take the smallest there. Your H4 circumference, anytime you basically run out of tines, what you get in, I'll hit the tape again.
One of the common misconceptions that I always heard growing up is if a buck didn't have quote unquote eye guards or brow tines, you missed a mass measurement.
Yeah.
So like for years, I was under that assumption and being like, well, man, that buck, if he had only had, an inch eye guard, he would have had another mass and been this or that. So
the other interesting thing with Boone and Crockett, if there is an attempt at a point, you can use it for a separator.
okay.
So if there's a bump there where that eye guard would have been, even if it doesn't qualify, if you can identify it and say that was an attempt at a point, that is appropriate to use as a separator for circumferences. I brought this one because there's nothing there. This is completely smooth. So in this case, they're both taken at the same spot. With this one, we put our baseline on. We'd already done that because we're scoring already. You come to the exact center of the tine. We then, to find this circumference location, you measure from this to the tip, divide that in half, and it is taken exactly where that falls. If there's a bump there, if there's something there, the rules state we take it at the midpoint. So no matter what, you come right down the center of that tine, take it to the tip, divide that in 2, and that is where your H4 circumference comes on this particular deer. If you had a forked horn, this didn't happen. You'd have 2 down here and 2 at the midpoint out the beam if there was not a G3. Couple other interesting things. You know why they're called G points?
No.
Because when we were making the score chart, G happened to be the letter we were on as we were lining everything out. There's no meaning to the G's or the H's.
That was actually a question I was going to ask you is why H? Why?
Yeah, it's just as they were laying it out, they put letters to denote where they were. on how it would be added up, and they
Interesting.
happen to be the G's and H's. It's not near as exciting as I think people would want it to be. You know, another good example, you'd mentioned if it was missing an eye guard, another misconception, oh, it's, you know, 6 up, I get an extra circumference. No. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no circumference taken here regardless. It's always 4. If you had a spike, it'd be the midpoint of the spike. You'd still get 4 circumferences on that.